and a very warm welcome to this week's show. It's episode 43. The league campaign comes to an exciting conclusion, and despite all the ups and downs throughout the campaign, Shells finish in a very solid and a very respectable third position in the defence of the title. Seeing Shamrock Rovers lifting the title at the weekend in such a damn squib made me feel more grateful for this time last year, and a man who was celebrating that night with me, Dunny, is back. Dunny McKagan. Dunny, you're fresh again, as always, after your midterm break. How was the weekend?
Yeah, the weekend still Keith Richards at the weekend, Andy, as you know. But I was good to have the week off all the same. Yeah, look, everything about the last game felt a bit unusual, didn't it? It being on a different time, a different day, and I think the most unusual, but not in a bad way, was just the atmosphere amongst the home fans before the game, during the game, just it being celebratory. Lovely to go in. You know, there was a lot of conversations I had throughout the afternoon and evening about who would have thought that we could have gone into this fixture and been so comfortable, because obviously people had thought prior to, you know, when you looked at the fixture list and how it went down to the last 5 minutes last season, and then we saw the charge that Pats were on at the end of last season, and you're thinking, Jesus, that could be a sticky one, whether it's, you know, are they going to win the whole thing and we have to give them a guard of honour? Could they win the league at our place? And as it transpired, we were able to get another one over them, and the mocking and the jeering and the gloating was absolutely top notch. So it was a brilliant day to be a Red.
Yep, I was on duty elsewhere in the country, but as driving home, I had the phone on beside me, listening, may I add, not watching, but in the car. For the first half, there was an issue with the LOI TV commentary, but on the plus side, you could hear the crowd clearly. And I think, if I'm wrong now, but I think it was good Reds man Aidan Geraghty with the what you call it, not the microphone, the
megaphone.
Megaphone, excuse me, by the sounds of things. And to hear the range of Pat's tunes, which I forgot we had, was beautiful. In crystal clear Dolby sound, the Riverside was fantastic. The game itself, Donny, we pretty much, is it fair to say, we wiped the floor with them, but we just couldn't put them away?
Ultimately, I think so. The sort of more, the longer the game went on, the more sort of ragged they became. I think they didn't manage to put any kind of pointed effort together, really. Spiel was, after, I'd say their best patch was probably the opening 10-15 minutes, and then they were very ragged. We outpassed them. We created bigger chances, which we'll probably touch on, particularly two at the very, very death. And ultimately, they were kind of toothless. I thought Paddy Barrett did a good job on Mason Melia in his swan song for Pats. And ultimately, we were quite comfortable. We got to give a lot of players minutes, sort of manage minutes. We started with a forward to back, which was different. So, you know, different formation. We had the luxury, I suppose, and that was the whole sort of sense of the day, was that we were able to luxuriate while Pats were stressing out of their minds, and that was a good place for us to be. If you were on the road listening to it, Andy, you would have missed some subtleties like the inflatables, the beach balls, the inflatable parrots, the sharks, the flamingos, the little desert islands that were being battered around the riverside like a Woodstock concert, and it was very good fun. Just as I said, the gloating was really, really top notch, and Pats were ultimately just very impotent. I know we didn't score either. That was only our 3rd nil all of the whole season. And again, even within that, we had what I can only describe, I think, Andy, as the worst miss I've ever seen in person.
Well, yeah, I've had my comments on Dan Kelly throughout the year. I think I'm sure he's a lovely fella, but if people are quite forensic about his finishing ability, he's missed so many chances. And that one, which I only properly looked back on afterwards. I hear the oohs and ahs in the car on the phone beside me. But look, in the end, it wasn't decisive. If I imagine that could have got a second place and a potential European Europa League spot, which is worth probably double the money for conference. That could have been a €300,000 goal anyway. But Dunny, when we started this wonderful podcast back in February, we started off with a fairly memorable night against Derry and Talca. The lights went out. It was a fairly impressive performance, but we've seen a lot of ups and downs. We've seen a lot of changes on and off the field. It has been a successful season, hasn't it? Like, it's overall, we finished strongly, but despite that, we've lost the least amount of games, 7. Again, we always tend to have a very high amount of draws, so that's always the one that sort of kills us in the end. But it's been a very successful season, I would say.
I'd agree, Andy. I think we'll probably dig into the data, hashtag data, and the weeds of things in a sort of a season roundup further down the line. But I'd agree. Broad strokes, it's been a very successful season. The most successful in the recent times, bar winning the league, which of course we were wild outside odd shots to do that. So then of course you have to factor in the reality that we lost the golden goose, midway through the season or so. That a lot of people were gloating in our direction then, thinking that we'd fall apart and our fan base would fall apart, and none of that came to pass. And if we went on and rallied, if anything, and it's shown actually that latter part of the season has been, no team has been more effective in the league, and of course we qualified for the first time ever into the league / group stages of European football. So by any metric, this has, and qualifying of course for Europe for next year, it's been great. It's been nervy at times. Obviously, we didn't leave ourselves with a huge amount of wiggle room, which is kind of crazy that we've managed to have even one game at the end against a direct rival for all of the same acclaims. That we managed to have that little bit of space at the end of the season. But I think Joey and the players have to be very proud of themselves for how they sort of doubled down, reinforced the camp, and made a really, really sterling effort at the latter half of the season. There's been a lot of barbs thrown at other clubs in Dublin about their mentality and perceived weaknesses in it, and I definitely think that would be totally wide of the mark to throw our way. I think we've shown our mentality to be really, really strong against some very, very difficult points in the season that could have floored us.
That performance from St.Pats was, I would say, fairly abject, and it sort of sums up my opinion of Pats. Is there's no substance to them really. Like, it's all knickers. It's all frilly stuff. It's all nonsense. But
all fur coat, no knickers. Is that
that's
what
the
we're
one.
saying?
That's the one, Donny. Thank you. But
All knickers. I'd like to see that.
all knickers. But if we flipped it around and we were the ones going to Richmond Park and we put knowing that we had to win a game, and Chelsea, there's a certain bond. The players get it. The fans get it. And that's why I'm very proud of. Despite we didn't win or retain the league this year, we certainly put in a sterling end to the season, despite all the ups and downs throughout the year. But just one question here. I don't want to spend too much time speaking about our Inchicore buddies, but Paul Byrne says he says this word, was the Stains' performance today the worst by any visiting team this season? In brackets, apart from Linfield. And he actually used a bit more colourful language than that, but I won't go into that language.
He didn't pass the censors there entirely, Paul.
No.
I think abject is a good word to describe it, in the sense that there was so much on the line for them. You know what I mean? And given the sort of bevy of riches that they have in the playing department, and the perceived coup that was Stephen Kenny, and getting him tied to a long-term contract in his first gig, obviously, since managing the national team. So they were rightly feared, I think, coming into the season, based on how dynamic and swashbuckling and, really threatening that they were on that run that they finished the season last year with, including, that crazy game against us in Talca. So when you see that, and then you see, a year on, they're coming to Talca roughly the same, roughly 12 months exactly down the line, and you see a regression. I think you'd have to say that the team has been bolstered. You've got a guy who's going for over £1 million to a Premier League team, and they've somehow slipped back. And I suppose that what would probably bug Pats fans more than anything is that the desire, and as you said, that sort of unity that we have as a group is certainly absent with them. A lot of Mayfainers, I would say. Not much sort of captain material. Chris Forrester has it all as a player, or certainly in his prime has had it all. And I think, he sort of embodies them in that. I'd said last week, I think, Andy, that they can be amazing on the eye, and he's done some incredible things. His highlight reels is second to none, really, in the League of Ireland in modern times. But then I think I said that they fall apart like a paper hat on Christmas Day, and that's what they gave us the other night. Just when the chips were down, no bottle, no cohesion, no leadership. Forrester, chief amongst them, just totally absent. Someone like Mulroney, who was absolutely terrorising us last year, came off the bench. Now, I don't know if his jersey has shrunk or he has grown, but he was certainly padding it out in a way that he wasn't 12 months ago. And yeah, I think, again, they've regressed despite investing more. I think that they've really made a bags of what should have been a very successful season for them. And of course, that's not even talking about the cup semi-final. So on all fronts, they have failed this season.
Yep, right. Last thing I'll say about them is that they went on their wonderful run at the end of last season, Dunny, when there was basically no pressure on them. And Stephen Kenny mentioned that may have influenced some of his signings. I always knew myself deep down that when it came down to the crunch of a new season, when it mattered, that they wouldn't have the cojones to sustain it. Can I ask, is it important now for Shells fans not to? I'm not going to say we're falling into the same mindset or same trap, but we've won 5 of our last 6. When the new season comes around, we shouldn't be thinking like, we're going to win it next year. We just need to just sort of temper expectations. There's a lot of movement, perhaps in the transfer market in the off season, but the signs are positive. But just for myself, I would say to people, just don't put next year's campaign based on our last few games, because next February, when it rolls around next February, it's a clean slate for everyone.
Yes, and you don't want to have expectations that are unreasonable, for sure. And I don't think, look, we're not a fan base, even when things were absolutely toxic at our club in the past, or just whether that was, Alan Matthews' era, or when it got toxic, or whether it was just terrible on the field, in the mid-teens and whatnot. The fan base never really turned on the players on the pitch, and we're not that type. But I think there's a lot of moving parts, as you said, Andy. We're entering into now unknown territory, in the sense that everybody else's season, bar ourselves and Rovers, is over. They've done this before. We haven't. We're effectively going to be playing football up until Christmas, which will be hard to manage, in the sense we've got 4 more games to go, with gaps in between. How do you keep the squad ticking over? How do you keep them match fit? It's going to be difficult against teams in some of the biggest leagues in the world, 2 in particular, obviously. And then how does that affect your acquisition of new players? who are coming from clubs who now maybe can't, they can't join into our European squads. So what do we do there? Players who who are going to want to leave, probably, who are surplus to requirements. What do we do with them? There's a lot going on there, and of course, you have Luke Byrne, who's still double jobbing at the moment. At what point do we announce a new body into the coaching staff there? Um, there's a lot going on off the field at the club as well. Obviously there's a women's manager that needs to be, and presumably a whole backroom team to go in there. Players coming and going at the women's side. I see that we've advertised for COO today, so that's obviously a huge role at the football club that's in flux as well. So look, this is, as I said, it's sort of new virgin territory regarding the playing element, but there's a lot going on, and look, there's good people in charge, and the culture is good. So I think we'll be fine. But certainly, I wouldn't come into next year and say automatically, if we don't finish top two or something, that's a disaster. I think it would be great if a year like this, minus some of the the drama, obviously midway through, if this kind of finish was just what you'd expect for a decade. But we've seen, League of Ireland football and how it's been, Andy, and bar Shamrock Rovers, really. They're the only team, and obviously they were at the bottom of the barrel not a huge amount of time ago themselves, but it's very, very hard to sustain success, even in the top three over a long period of time. So for us to be able to get Europe 3 years in a row is a success in and of itself. So yeah, let's have tempered expectations, but sure, if we can't get a bit giddy, then what's the point of it all either? So let's enjoy it while we can for now, for sure.
Absolutely. Just one last thing. It was fantastic to see just under 5,500 at that game on Saturday. As I said, the atmosphere, from what I could hear, it was brilliant. It was amazing. So I think we're going to go through all the stats in the next week or two, Dunny. We need to give our season review the due time and attention it needs. But there's a lot of interesting stats in there, some very positive signs. So we get back to that in the next week or so. Dunny, before we move on to European action, I forgot to say this last week. A good friend of the show, Davy O'Connor, departed his S&C role with the women's team after Owen Weir had gone. Apologies, Davy. It slipped my mind last week, but an incredible servant to the club. Hopefully we'll see him back at some point, Dunny.
Yeah, there's been so much going on, Andy, I suppose. It's hard to know when to make time for everything, but Dave is a special guy. He's been in my life now as long as Shells. Effectively, I don't think I would have. I don't think I'd be a Shells fan were it not for Davey, to be honest. And he's worked now under 4 managers between men and women, and in the first team. He does it with a quiet dignity. A lot of people wouldn't know who Davey is, despite the fact that all the players speak so highly of him. And I know that they were sharing a lot of emotional messages with him, and it was a difficult decision for him to make. I'm not sure how much forethought he was able to put into it based on the sort of suddenness of Owen Weir's departure. But I know Davy has moved from Dublin to the outskirts of County Louth, and the commute was a bit unforgiving. And I think maybe he's earned a break. So I told him in privately that I told him, I think I said something along the lines of that this was him turning a page, not closing the book, and that I think he's very young, in this game, so he could absolutely take a year or two to do what he wants to do something more local, or just to take a break altogether. And the club would be crazy not to take him back in the future, if in whatever role he would put himself forward for. So listen, I hope he enjoys the break. I love him to bits, and the type of unsung hero at the football club. There's a lot of people who would fall into that category, but when it comes to man hours, yeah, hours on buses and cars going to training and up and down the country, in the first division with the men's team to Finn Harps and Cove and Salt Hill and all the rest of it, and then the same for the women's team going down to matches in Cork and whatever, where you'd be getting crowds that are far less than spectacular for not much fanfare. He's done it all, and he hasn't asked for anything from us. So I just like to wish him all the best, and he'll a bit like Al Pacino in The Godfather. I think at some point he'll be sucked back in, but he's definitely earned his break.
Yeah, well done, Davy, and thanks for all your service. We did a great episode with Dave. I think it was in June time, episode 20. Available if anyone wants to listen back to it. It's an hour, well worth your time. So yeah, we'll see Davy hopefully around Talca a bit more, and looking forward to seeing him in the new year. Donny, this week, as we record on a Monday evening, on Wednesday, the UEFA Youth League comes to Talca Park. So we've got two big European games this week. 2-2 after the first leg away against Zelina. This is going to be very interesting. It's a great chance for the lads to maybe get through, but Zelina, I don't know if you saw much of the game, Donny, but Zelina, I believe, were a much higher caliber opposition than our friends from Rabbit Nicky were, but great to see the lads ploughing a furrow in the European competition.
Yeah, and look, still in it to win it. Obviously, bringing it back to Talca with the draw, having been 2-0 down is brilliant. We had a binary choice last week, Andy, between Slovakia and Slovenia. We got it wrong. It's Slovakia, not Slovenia, but sure, them's the breaks.
Yeah.
You can't win them all. But I know as soon as the fixture was announced, I had 2 or 3 people independently of one another text the details to me saying, have to get down to this. These guys are absolutely class. Every person I know who's gone to see them, all of the information I've heard is that they are just an absolute joy to watch. So yeah, the fact that the Shells team senior won't be playing in Talca. I know there's a game in Talca just been announced for Friday as well, but which might be interesting. But to get your Shells fix in Talca Park this side of the new year, this is your chance.
Yep. Okay, so I'll be there. Looking forward to it. 7:45, I think, on Wednesday in Talca. I wish the lads the best. So, Donny, nearly 2 weeks on from our heartbreak in North Macedonia. Your friends in the North Macedonian tourist board are still singing your praises. We're not moving too far away, but our friends from Kosovo are in Tala this week. Drita. This is a must-win, I would say, if we have any hopes of progressing. It's a very tightly packed table, but even that point we left behind in North Macedonia and Skopje 2 weeks ago could be expensive. But is this set up for Shells to give it a good crack?
I think so, Andy. I think Drita will be feeling the exact same for us. They've drawn their first 2 games, and obviously we came very close to doing the same. We should have done the same. So I imagine that if they're looking to get to their 7-point mark, I presume their ambitions would sort of reflect our own, I imagine, and therefore, yeah, this is good. I think they'd probably take a point away from home as well. But if we fail to win, I think we can. I think it's a long shot anyway. Let's call a spade, Andy. But I think at this stage, getting beyond the league phases into the playoff is probably unlikely. It would need a point or a result in a fixture harder than the first 3 ones that we've sort of chalked down prematurely as ones that we're unlikely to get anything from. But I have a little potted history of FC Drita, Andy.
Oh yes, please. Yeah.
If you'd care to hear it, you mentioned on the intro there that we're not going too far from North Macedonia, and as I was looking into Drita and Kosovo at large, huge amount of overlapping history and sort of little things that popped up where I was like, oh, this is very, very similar. Even down to their name, in that Drita means light in Albanian. And if you remember, Shkendia means spark as well. So that this is obviously something that the Albanians lean in towards as names for their sports teams. So, but we're talking about Kosovo again. Why are we talking about? Why am I saying Albania? Well, Kosovo declared independence in 2008. Online, it still says that their status is independent, although in brackets it would say claimed by Serbia. So this is another similarity with North Macedonia, where the Albanian contingent would be very anti-Serb due to Serbia constantly trying to say that they're part of Serbia. And the ethnic groupings in Kosovo are almost 92% ethnic Albanian. So it's 91.8% Albanian, 2.2% Serb, 1.7 Bosnian, 1.2 Turk, and the rest is a mix of whatever else. They have a population in Kosovo of 1.5 million, give or take. Capital is Pristina, and where Drita are from is pronounced Gilan, and that is the third most populous city with a fairly meager, by Irish standards even, population of 82,000 people. But Kosovo borders North Macedonia on one narrow side, which I think we touched on last year. They were part of the Kosovo, or the land now known as Kosovo, was part of the Ottoman Empire for 500 years or so. Around the First World War, it became part of the Kingdom of Serbia, and then that sort of rolled into what became Yugoslavia then following the Second World War. But there was always this tension between the Albanian Kosovars simmering there in the background against the Serbs. So obviously there was a war in Yugoslavia in 1991 that lasted for 3.5 years. A little known fact to most of my friends, most of my Shells friends, would be that the first time I ever set foot in Tolka Park, I think was 97, 98. Wasn't for a game of football, Andy. It was as part of a Bosnian rock band called Zetra, who were booked to play in the bar. So, yeah, so my family were involved in this group called the Ireland Action for Bosnia following the war in Yugoslavia, when Ireland started rehoming people displaced by the war. And I got told one day basically that I was going to an audition because this Bosnian band needed a bass player. And sort of the long and short of it was, I was about 20 years younger than everybody else in the band. They had all the other guys were Bosniaks, and they had fought in the war as every sort of man of age had to do. They weren't soldiers, but they all had to fight. Everybody had been obviously touched by it in very serious ways. And yeah, so this would have been late 90s. I spent a lot of my weekends going from venue to venue around town, the Teachers Club, Fireman's Club, and places like Talcum. First time I walked into Talcum Park was to play a gig for them. So this kind of opened the door to me to being sort of a friend of Kosovo, because when the war ended in Yugoslavia, Kosovo were kind of left on the outside. They weren't part of the Dayton Agreement or the Dayton Accord or the Dayton Peace Accord, as it was known in 1995, which sort of ended the war. And this is where the KLA, the Kosovo Liberation Army, kind of fell in or came about, because Slobodan, I should say, Milosevic, who was the Serb leader at the time and is now a convicted war criminal. including genocides in places like Srebrenica. He was still making land grabs for Kosovo, saying it was part of Greater Serbska. The KLA fought back. I remember doing a gig actually in school to raise money for the Kosovan war effort in 1999. But all of this to say that the Albanians in Kosovo have always felt really, really put upon, and that Albanian ethnicity is super, super strong. The same way that people who travel to North Macedonia would have seen and felt that over there. So there's one story which I came across, which I have to share with you all. Now, it's not completely PG, Andy, so if there are small ears listening, we try and keep the show PG.
Yep.
But when I was researching Gilan, where Drita come from, I was like, okay, what is Gilan most famous for? And in 1985, there was what's referred to as the glass bottle incident. This is the wildest story I've ever heard. There was a farmer, a Serbian farmer in the town of Gilan, and he approached the local police saying that 2 Kosovar Albanians had forcibly inserted a glass jar or a glass bottle into his rectum. Now, it's said online that this led to a prolonged, heated period of ethnic tension among Serbs and local Albanians in the Kosovo region. Now, it later proved, and I think this says a lot about the Serbs. It later, this farmer admitted, it was in fact himself who had inserted the glass bottle or the glass jar, and the Kosovars, the Albanians, had nothing to do with it. But there's some sort of metaphor there about once the toothpaste is out of the tube, once the glass jar is in the rectum, you can't. Either way, it didn't do anything for relations, and effectively then there was a war which was ended by NATO strikes in June 1999. So the war the Kosovo War was from February 98 between June 99 between Kosovo and Serbia. Very controversial NATO strikes. Bill Clinton was the American president at the time, and he basically didn't want to put any troops on the ground, and he said, let's just bomb them, but it led to mass casualties of innocents on both sides. But from there on, that was the start of their road to independence in 2008. So they've been through the mill, Andy, like so many Central Balkan countries have been. Drita were founded in 1947, but they would have had to play so much of their early years, obviously, in a Yugoslav league. The Super League that they now play in is a much newer thing. They won their first title recently enough in 2002, 2003. They've only won 4 titles ever. The most recent, obviously, last year's. But they've been a bit like Skendi again. I think there was a bit of an investment in there, Andy. Maybe not quite as large and obvious as Skendi is, but they won the year 17-18, then 19-20, then a little bit of a lull, and back again last year. So they're the first Kosovan side to ever win the Champions League match in 2018 at the Victoria Stadium, Gibraltar, which was a nice little overlap. They weren't playing a team from Gibraltar; they were playing an Andorran team, FC Santa Columba, and so a bit of a flag bearers for Kosovan football. And another overlap with the Reds actually is that this year, Andy, the same way that we played Linfield in the Champions League and then ended up playing them again in the playoff to get into the league phase, that's exactly what happened to FC Drita. But their opponents were Differdange, who I assume this is from Luxembourg, Differdange 03. Now, are these the same crowd who continue? They're like Dudelange or Dudelange?
Different. Yeah.
Oh, it's a different team?
I lived in Luxembourg many years ago for a year, and they are different teams, but they're often confused on even.
Yeah, they look, the names sounds similar. But yeah, so they beat Differdange of Luxembourg 4-2 in the Champions League this year. And then some narrow results. And this is the thing I'd say about them, Andy. Even when they don't win or get results, they've lost very narrowly to some big teams, including FC Copenhagen and others recently. But to get through to make the league phase, they beat Differdange again 3-1. So, and as I said, they've got 2 draws so far, one against Koops of Finland and the other against Ammonia Nicosia of Cyprus. So, like, that's got to be seen as a very good start for them. You'd have to say, considering, what would be realistic for them. And their squad makeup, Andy, even surprised me. I wasn't surprised
Go ahead,
to see.
They have a very cosmopolitan squad.
Yeah, they really do. And it wouldn't surprise you to find out that their manager is North Macedonian, and that the majority of the squad, I suppose, is a mixture of Kosovars, Albanians, and North Macedonians. There's nothing too weird or wonderful there, given the history of the location. But they have one Ivorian, they have one Colombian, they have one player from the Republic of the Congo, and they have not one, not 4, but 5 Ghanaians in the team. So that's 5 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. That's 8. 7 Africans and a South American, which is pretty radical for a team in that part of the world, I would say. If we had that, or if Sligo Rovers or something had that, you'd think that was pretty out there. So, and their results have been good. So I don't think they'll be coming to Tala with any sense of inferiority. I think that's for sure. And the fact that they've managed to, not win nor lose their opening 2 would suggest they have a bit of practicality about them. Their manager's name is Mr. Ramadani of North Macedonia. And yeah, I think much like the first 2 games, Andy, I wouldn't be expecting a goal fest either way. I think it'll probably be very tight. Anyone going to Tala on Thursday thinking that, we got to roll these people over because we've got tougher games upcoming, I think will be in for a bit of a letdown, because nothing in their results against anyone suggests that they are there to be rolled over. And I think we're gonna have to try and come out on the right side of a tight game, Andy.
An incredible analysis, Dunny. Thank you very much. Everything in the Balkans, a whirlwind tour again of the Balkan region. And do we know if the farmer recycled that glass, Dunny? Or was recycling as big back in 1985? Or maybe we'll just leave that one there. I don't know. But
I'm not sure if they had the return scheme back then, Andy, or
probably better off.
I hope he gave it a rinse anyway.
Please God. Right, as you said, I think these guys are no mugs. I think they're 3rd in their domestic league. They would have what we would call a traditional season. I think they're 12 games in. But yeah, the 2 clubs that you said they've drawn against, Ammonia Nicosia and Koops, they themselves are no mugs. So as things stand in the table, they're just a point ahead of us. But is it too easy or too simplistic to say, look, Joey O'Brien basically knows this could be their Shell's final crack to get 3 points, and you might as well just throw the kitchen sink at it? Or would he have a bit more of a sensible / cautious approach, or is it just too hard to say?
I agree with you, Andy, in that I think that this is, for 3 points on paper, this is the game, So the fact that you're talking about over 400,000 euros potentially for a win, I think you need to be brave. Joey has shown he started with 4 at the back the other day against Pats, and he started with 4 at the back in the game that feels like it got this whole momentum rolling. The 1-0 win in Tala against Shamrock Rovers. But I certainly feel like having attacking players on the field, he alluded to it himself in the post-match analysis, that we've left too many goals behind, big chances not converted, in front of goal, like the one we had on Saturday, is in some small way part of the storyline, part of the narrative of the season. Um, we saw against Hacken, we basically had two chances. One went narrowly wide, the other was marginally offside, and you don't get more than that generally. So, and obviously in Skendi, we saw the same thing, hit the butt of the post, and that's the difference potentially between getting a huge financial windfall and going home empty-handed. So you can't go too gung-ho too soon. But I feel even for his, let's use some Sky Sports lingo, his war chest, his transfer war chest for the following season, the guts of £500,000 would certainly go a long way to helping to bolster your funds and to fortify your finances for the coming year. So I think he'll be brave when the time comes. At the same time, part of that is, you don't try not to concede stupid goals, which at various times has been another strand of our narrative for the 2025 season. But I think it'll be nervy, and I think this won't be a game that's out of sight as we head into the last quarter or so of the game, I'd say, and that might be where the winning and losing of things is. But I'd be happy enough, Andy, looking at the health of our squad and the sort of healthiness of the competition there. Other than, I suppose, Sean Boyd is the only really new long-term addition to the injury list. Not that we were really counting him as being back prior to his new injury. He was still sort of edging his way into the squad or into the team. So there's been no big losses there, whereas we're seeing the squad actually getting, a bit more bolstered with, Lewis Temple got more minutes. James Roach made his league debut. Tyreek Wilson, a little bit surprised, Andy, maybe that he hasn't gotten more minutes since he started that game at centre half. He was an unused sub again. I don't know, maybe he's had a slight recurrence, or maybe Joey doesn't feel he's up to it for whatever reason. But look, he's there, he's on the bench, and for a lot of Shells fans, someone like Tyreek could be seen as a pretty safe pair of hands. But I think that the depth of the squad is fine for this game, that we could take chances, and we have players to come in positions if we need cover, or if we need to change some dynamics. So we're not hamstrung going into this game. This is I don't know what the games are going to look like in a few weeks, Andy, when we've no games in between. But I think this is a nice time now for this game, because it's, we're still in season mode. We haven't had a big break. We're match fit. So like, this really is the time when the iron is hot and we have to strike it. But just because it's big for us, doesn't mean it's going to happen. We've got to go out there and make it happen.
It's good to see Mark Coyle put in a fairly solid performance there on Saturday, back in his more familiar position. To me, he looked like the Coiler of 2 or 3 years ago, which was good to see. Now
of last year, to be fair, like, again, we might get into this in the breakdown of the season, but I think Coyle's had 3 years of his trajectory going upwards. This is the only season really where it's sort of slid the other way. But there's certainly an argument there as to that happened because he was forced to play and to cover areas when we didn't have natural cover for them, and that he suffered because of that. And I thought he was really, really excellent on Saturday, and it sort of looked like he never went away. That's the Dublin derby, Mark Coyle right in the middle of it in centre midfield. It was kind of reminiscent of the start of last year against Rovers, one of those big Dublin derbies where you could absolutely count on him for the big tackles, the big moments. I thought it was very heartening to see, for sure.
Yeah. Squad depth is looking good. So we're nearly there, Donny. A lot of Albanians in Ireland. Do you reckon we could see a healthy crowd on Thursday? Because obviously the last time Hacken were in town, we had Hurricane Katrina, and I remember that night the weather was horrendous, and the M50 was shut down because of idiots protesting and all this nonsense, and there was only 100 or so Hacken fans. So like a good old, I did my preparation. As of now, the weather looks okay for Thursday. Don't want to jinx it, but this could be a lovely, lovely big night out for everyone. Just really hope we can get a healthy crowd in.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the fact that you could argue the team was in a little bit of a lull league form wise when the Hacking game rolled around. Um, Obviously, it was the first one ever at that level, but as you said, there was a very minimal traveling support from Sweden. They're not traditionally a big club in Sweden. Drita are a big club in Kosovo, and as you said, they have the Albanian angle, and there's a decent Albanian community in Ireland. I'd wager the Bosnians who have a community here as well would be very sympathetic to the Kosovan cause, and I wouldn't be shocked if they came out to sort of wish them well on the night as well. All the Shells fans who've been on this just crazy ride since that Hacking game should be really emboldened to we haven't lost a game. We've only dropped points in that game on Saturday since then, which is crazy. Really, it seems like a world away. But so I think the Shells crowd will hold up if not increase. Surely we can't get weather comparable to that again. And as you said, it was a bit of a storm in many regards. Regarding the traffic was a nightmare, the weather was a nightmare. But I think this is probably in line to at least match it, if not do better. And just even the atmosphere should be improved upon the fact that we know we're playing in Europe again next year, which we spoke about on here, Andy, that the element of a little bit of pressure released from the fan base as well, knowing that job done, Europe next year confirmed. The fact that we don't need something from this to go towards that. The air is very much still in the balloon, so I think everyone's going to be in as good a spirits as you can be in Tala any day, I suppose. It's not mine or your favorite place in the world, Tala Stadium, but yeah, look, I'm looking forward to it. It would be great. I mean, history is still there to be made. I know Joey said we haven't scored a goal yet in the league phase. We came so close the last day, obviously with the John Martin header that we spoke about. Someone is surely going to grab that and become a note in Shell's history forevermore as the first person to score in a league phase. So and obviously we're going to need someone to do it, or else that 400k isn't coming our way. So yeah, let's be there for that historic moment, and hopefully that'll come, and we can all say that we were there, Andy.
Yep, I think we could. Well, I could see the game on Saturday against Pats. We start to sort of had that pressure lifted off our shoulders because we had guaranteed European football. And I think that really showed in the way we played with a lot of freedom. We're creating chances, which is traditionally the hardest part of the game, but we just need to convert them. Two final things. Don't need you. Not a question, but somebody texted me earlier on to see if Dunny might be bringing any stray dogs with him to Tala. But we'll wait and see what happens there.
I'm an animal man, Andy, as you probably know. I'm an animal lover. We have cats here because too busy following the Reds to and moving houses lately to keep any larger animals. But I wonder, is the Sconto pooch gonna show up? And if so, given that the Sconto pooch is likely to be ethnically Albanian, they might be defecting to the other side. So who knows?
Oh dear,
Might
Lord.
keep an eye on that account, Andy, and see if there's any change in the Sconto dog's allegiance.
God help us. Right. One last thing. This Sunday, Dunny, are we all cheering for Cork City? Is that, or do you really do you give a shit?
It would be hilarious. Like, I know it didn't bother us at all last year. Really, we kind of leaned into it at times about the idea of worst champions, particularly when it comes from fans. It was a bit galling to hear talking heads like Johnny Ward and stuff can continually sort of refer back even this season to, like, well, Shell's only won the league because insert rubbish take after that. But I think this is unprecedented stumbling over the line from Shamrock Rovers.
Desperate
I
side.
was
They're dreadful.
Yeah. Now, I mean, of course, there's sort of, if there can be such a thing as reflected shade, there is that in our direction, because and others and the rest of the league being like the fact that they only needed a 1-0 win in the last, whatever it was, 4 or 5 league games. Even a draw there would have been enough. Shows how far away from the pack they had pulled, which is a reflection on the fact that we couldn't really lay a glove on them throughout the season, or certainly once the season got motoring properly. So, but were they to blow the cup final in the way that Derry blew it last year, like we saw that, like Derry's season fell apart last year, but there was not many people giving Drogheda a hope going into the last competitive fixture, because there was a huge amount. They were down. There are a lot of similarities. They were down, in the relegation playoff place. Obviously, Cork were already gone, and Derry just did not show up. Now, obviously, it was even more baffling for Derry because they needed, there was bonuses on the line and European football on the line and whatnot. But Rovers have been celebrating. Rovers rightfully are champions, and there's nothing you can say to the contrary. But there might be just a sneaking little air of doubt. Momentum is a real thing in sport. We've talked about this often, Andy, and they have had losing momentum.
And Rovers are in Athens as well on Thursday night, Dunny.
Yeah, and the travel alone there, and like there's a lot of there's an element there of, obviously, they're going to not, I would suggest, put out their strongest team against Aik in Athens, but because I don't think it'd matter if they get beaten anyway. But Rovers also, you don't want to. No team wants to go there and get beaten 7 or 8-0, and there'll be 30,000 plus people at that game. I was in Athens on my honeymoon, actually, and we went to the AEK, they pronounce it Aik locally, stadium, and there was the international team was playing there, and the whole area is absolutely mad for football, and the rivalries are huge over there, and like there'll be a very hostile crowd there, and like I heard someone, I think on News Talk, joking, they might send their under 15s, it doesn't matter, but like if you're not on it out there, you could ship 6, 7, 8 goals, like. So the travel, the fact that they'll have to put out some semblance of a competitive team, it's not ideal prep, and I presume Stephen Bradley will have had given them some license to let their hair down following the league win as well. Whereas Cork are obviously completely and utterly focused on this. It would still be a huge shock, but I'd certainly be here for it, Andy. And if it meant that obviously Cork got a European place, then, as weird as that would be, obviously me and Bows are out of a European spot as well. So that would be beautiful, that our comeback win there, coupled with our stifling of Pats on Saturday, if that led to us managing to keep not one but 2 Dublin rivals out of Europe for next year, that would be a very, very sweet gift.
Would anyone going to the game or maybe watching it on TV? Every cup final every year they have a 25th year jubilee team, and this year it's Shells from 2000. And is that the last time we won the cup, Tony? Is it that long ago?
I think it is. Only.
So if anyone,
we've certainly gotten to cup finals since then, but
so
we haven't won it.
Yeah, so if anyone's there, you'll see players such as the Gagans, the Bakers, massive Bohemians fan, Owen Heary will be there. Richie, Sir Paul Doolan, Nutsy Fenlon, James Keddy, just to name a few. So uh, anyway, that's Shell's Jubilee
It
team are on
yeah, it
duty
does.
that
A quality team, and like they're legends of the game. A lot of them, obviously. It does show though, Andy. Like it's a crazy amount of time not to
Yeah,
be winning the cup. You know,
it is
um,
quarter of a century.
yeah, it's when in a country with, let's face it, not huge depth when it comes to professional football teams. Now I know we spent a good chunk of that in the first division, but sure we even got to a cup final. We put a better performance in 2011,
We did, yeah.
as runners up in the first division. Then we managed as seventh place finishers in the Premier. But yeah, and look, Rovers have had obviously their own barren spell um, prior to their last win, and that was a good few years. That's over a decade ago, I think, as
Yeah,
well. Is it?
too close to it, yeah. It is
Yeah,
indeed,
so
yeah.
um, they don't have this, the traditional Rovers, the cup specialists. I think that's back to when your man in that old documentary was shouting at the one Shelburne fan in the pub there in Irishtown. The only chance that Shells will get to Europe is in Joe Walsh's tours. That fella, when he was there, I think Rovers were cup specialists back then, but
That's
no
fair
more.
enough.
But yeah, look, let's hope that first division would-be's can maybe put a spanner in the works.
Yeah, let's wait and see. So, Donny, thanks a million. I'm off to Google the glass bottle incident, and we may have an update on that next week. So, anyone going to Tala or Talca this week, enjoy the games. Donny, thanks a million as always. Great pleasure.
Lovely, thanks, Andy.
We speak to everyone next week.